here today to talk about the secret to scaling a brand in hypergrowth mode. I am Danielle Giroux, and I am the creative director at Clio. I want to start by saying that building a scalable brand in a hypergrowth organization does not need to be complicated. It simply needs to be intentional. How many of you recognize that your organization's brand is not built for scale, but don't know the best approach to build the foundation? If you set the foundations and enable your organization to continuously evolve with the brand, it could significantly impact the success of becoming the next 100-year company and thriving through hypergrowth. My experience had been strictly agency side prior to being the creative director at Clio. I decided to move in-house to build the brand for Clio because I am fascinated with fast-paced environments and particularly interested in finding efficiencies that meet the demand. When we think about processes and enabling clients, we think about success as an outcome. We tend to forget how important the crucial step of building a foundation is, and how it will support the brand continuing to evolve and be maintained over time. At Clio, I noticed that a lack of oversight into the brand would hinder the ability to make informed decisions regarding the brand and ultimately cause inconsistencies. I started to wonder how this impacts brand recognition and ultimately brand trust. Is it possible that building a strong brand foundation is the key to creating a scalable brand? At Clio, we believe on a foundational level that we have a responsibility to change the world around us with our words, our choices, and our actions. We envision a world in which our legal and judicial systems promote justice in the truest sense of the word. A world in which it is easy for anyone who needs legal services to access them, for lawyers to have the freedom to practice the way they want, and for underrepresented groups in our society to get the advocacy they deserve. Being the market leader for legal technology means that we have an added responsibility to set the tone for the next generation and to help ensure that the technology shaping legal experiences is also serving the greater good. Our mission statement is transforming the legal experience for all. At the start of the pandemic, lawyers and legal professionals who had hesitated to adopt legal technology in the past were suddenly forced to rapidly adapt to this new reality. While this technological change is in response to the crisis, it's an enduring change. The organization announced this month a new valuation of $1.6 billion US after raising $110 million US in its Series E. This signaled a historic moment in the growth of legal technology, with Clio becoming the first legal practice management unicorn globally. The investment is indicative of the explosive demand for legal technology that empowers lawyers to be cloud-based and client-centered. To say the least, my fascination with fast-paced environments has been fueled at Clio. But what is the secret to scaling a brand to meet this explosive demand? Let me take you back 2 years to when I first joined Clio. When I first joined Clio, the brand looked something like this to me. All of Clio's brand assets were stored in nested folders in Google Drive, causing lack of visibility into the brand. Search functionality and access overall was limited to knowing the name of the file or folder where the asset was stored. I recognized immediately that this system wouldn't allow for the scale of the brand. And then this happened. Our folders in Google Drive got corrupted due to a change in permission levels, leaving many working files and reference assets erased. However, as Winston Churchill once said, never let a good crisis go to waste. These empty folders and corrupted assets provided an opportunity to build a business case for why we needed a digital asset management system, or better known as a DAM. Recreating the thousands of working files and assets we had lost and uploading them into a folder structure that I knew wasn't going to serve the company long term was simply not a solution. I had begun exploring the digital asset management solutions in January, just before the pandemic and before the pre-existing folder structure corrupted. In March, just as we went fully remote, we moved forward with choosing Binder as our DAM, and I had it up and running within a matter of months. With the DAM in place, it allowed us to organize all of the assets we had uploaded and really get a sense of the brand as a whole. We were able to see a bird's eye view of every touch point a prospect or customer comes across with our brand and how the assets related to one another. As you think about scaling a brand, create time and space to determine if the foundation for the brand is set up for scale. Do your research on the company and the history of the brand so you can be strategic in understanding how the brand's touch points connect with their prospects and customers. The bird's eye view that the DAM provides allows for every touch point to be thoughtfully considered when building a brand for scale. Consistency is the key to success in building an enduring brand. Every interaction and touch point with the brand that a prospect, customer, investor, board member, employee encounters is a moment where brand trust continuously builds. One of the best ways to scale a brand in hypergrowth mode is to think about where the efficiencies are. This quote resonates with me. Civilization advances by extending the number of operations we can perform without thinking about them. This is an important piece to remember when you look at your processes and operations within your organization that support the scale of the brand. Let me ask you this. How many times a week do you get asked to provide the company logo to someone in your organization? How many times a week do you get asked to resize an asset? Take each repetitive request to pause and think about how you can create efficiencies for your organization to scale, allowing you the space to think strategically and creatively instead of being reactive. Challenge your thinking and ask yourself, what can you automate in your current workflows? How will your current workflow support a company twice the size, 5 times the size, or 10 times the size? How will the brand successfully scale if design can't meet the inherent demand for the growth? For your brand to withstand hypergrowth, at a foundational level, you need to be set up for success and scale. You can't allow for repetitive requests to keep occurring and not reflect on how your processes can shift to support the demand. At Clio, I have enabled each and every employee to be on brand through the use of the DAM. I like to think of this as the design team going from 7 to 600. We've enabled the entire company to access branded assets and create new ones that meet their demand via digital brand templates. With this foundation in place, it allowed us to build out our brand architecture with confidence. With the processes in place to support the demand for the growth of the brand, you can effectively build your brand architecture. Think of brand architecture like the blueprint for a house. The brand architecture is a map that organizes the company into an effective strategy for success. It contains your organization's mission statement, target mindset, functional benefit, emotional benefit, what you stand for, and your brand personality. Spend time in this phase and remember that you are establishing the brand to be the foundation of an enduring 100-year company. Equally as important as the brand architecture is the team structure supporting the growth of the brand over time. The brand will miss opportunities to scale if your team structure is not set up for success. Ensure your team structure is made up of designers with various core focuses, and create structure and accountability within your design team. At Clio, our creative team structure is supported by a very intentional meeting cadence. Here's a glimpse into how I have structured each day of the week for the creative team. Each day we have stand-ups that have intentional conversations that happen. The ultimate goal of these stand-ups is to avoid the team working in silos, allowing them to lean into the work each other is doing and continuously look for opportunities of efficiencies. Mondays are dedicated for resourcing, where we align on the tasks that are required to complete that week. Tuesdays, we share what our priorities are for the week's tasks and how we've structured our week. Wednesdays are for raising any flags that team members have to allow for the team to support one another. Thursdays, we share creative inspiration and may relate back what we've shared to work that the team is doing that week. Fridays, we have deemed Brand Brain. This is the team's time to ask any questions they have regarding the brand, processes they want to discuss improving, suggestions they have, challenges they have. It's all on the table in this 1-hour session. This longer meeting is our chance to discuss not only what we've had executed on that week, but to remain intentional with how the brand is evolving over time in this hypergrowth mode. Each week, this meeting structure allows our communication amongst our creative team to iterate for the following week and enable scale over time. In a hypergrowth organization, opportunities are created in cross-functional efficiency. At Clio, the creative team previously worked in the Adobe Creative Suite. We primarily relied on being in the office to sit down with each other and review working files. The team would share assets as JPEGs over Slack, where feedback would be provided via threads. Early on in the pandemic, we identified that this way of working wasn't going to suit us as we scaled. It did not allow for timely feedback and effective remote collaboration. We thought through how product design at Clio was using Figma and how we could allow for the workflows to complement one another to enable scale over time. Over the course of only a month, we piloted moving to Figma, and the team immediately saw the value in this new way of working. Creating these efficiencies allows space for opportunity. In hypergrowth mode, the business moves fast. Inefficiencies compound over time and inhibit a brand from scaling. To make informed decisions in this rapid environment, you have to have the foundation and the structure in place to meet the demand. Scaling a brand at an organization in hypergrowth mode requires you to understand the business goals of the company to ensure the brand is set up for success over time. Understand what the long-term vision for the company is and think past only the current state. To thrive in a hypergrowth environment, focus on what is most essential to the company's success instead of simply advocating for whatever's in front of you. Simply put, if something isn't working, do something about it. These small wins I have described in both our foundation and our structure will enable scale over time. At a hypergrowth organization, you need to have a plan for game day. It is crucial that you are ready for the moment when it comes to meet any type of demand. Opportunities can come in small windows that you need to be ready for. The efficiencies that we've built at Clio are what I compare to us showing up for practice. We've built a foundation that enables us to be ready for the race. I believe in the power of breaking down complex goals into actionable steps. At Clio, I segmented the brand evolution rollout into 3 phases. These phases provided guidance for cross-functional teams in what they could expect and how it would impact their outputs. To scale your brand in a hypergrowth organization, Avoid tunnel vision. If you only focus on the brand's impact on one segment of the business, you are missing opportunities. You have to consistently position yourself to maintain a bird's eye view of how all the brand touchpoints work together to form that brand trust. This goes especially for how you approach your rollout and the impact that the assets you are producing have. At Clio, we broke the rollout plan into 3 phases. The first phase was our foundations phase, which included brand guidelines, templates, training, and enrollment. The second phase we deemed an asset overhaul, where we created a tiering structure for all assets cross-functionally within Clio. In our final stage, we looked at brand extensions, which are supporting brands within the organization that complement the main brand. These 3 phases are crucial in scaling any brand. To your prospect or customer, the consistency in your brand is directly reflected in the trust that you build with them. This trust comes from every role within the company and the dedication that we have to our mission at Clio. The consistency in the output builds brand recognition over time. Most importantly, set expectations for your brand in the form of brand standards. Make these publicly available. Communicate your expectations for engaging with the brand and where support and resources can be found for enablement across the organization. Let me wrap up. Building a scalable brand in a hyper-growth organization does not need to be complicated. It needs to be intentional. Here is what you need to take away. Number 1, consistency is the key to success in building an enduring brand. Number 2, you must have a strong foundation to build a solid structure. And finally, number 3, small wins create scalable efficiencies. If you remember one thing, building a scalable brand and enabling growth is the foundation of an enduring 100-year company. Thank you. I appreciate you joining, and I'm looking forward to engaging in the conversation about this.
Daniela, hello. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, very good. First of all, let me compliment your set and lighting, and that is what we're looking for in a presentation. Note to some other speakers next time.
Oh, amazing.
Very good.
Happy to provide support if I can.
Yay, super. Hey, first of all, maybe a silly question, but legal technology, what are the specifics? Why is it different from what other companies need and other businesses need?
Yes, legal technology is it's a very interesting area to be in right now. At Clio, our biggest competitor is actually pen and paper, if you can believe it or not. So it's a very interesting SaaS company in that the opportunity ahead of us is just massive. We like to describe this as basically only the tip of the iceberg is what we're at with Clio. So it's a very exciting opportunity, and ultimately with our mission statement to transform the legal experience for all. It's much bigger than just lawyers, and we look as far as actually how this enables clients to have access to justice. It's a much, much bigger thing than just making lawyers more efficient at the end of the day, but rather actually what else we can impact in the world on a global scale.
Okay, very good. The whole day, actually a lot of the 2 days, the theme has been about setting it up, giving it the proper gravitas, planning, executing, all those sorts of things. And interesting to see you describe some of those ideas as well. One thing that we were talking on to the speaker before you, or two back, was about accountability, and it's not just enough to plan, but how do you get different parts of the organization to look in the same direction, march together? Use your favorite analogy.
I love that question. I'm so glad that you asked this. One thing that I touched on was cross-functional communication or cross-functional enablement. So one thing that I think is so important is to enroll the entire organization in your plan. If they don't know what the plan is, they can't input into it, simply put. So one way that we did this at Clio when we first started rolling out the brand evolution was actually enabling this through a Confluence space. Now, there's many ways that you could do this at an organization, but the Confluence space that we set up actually allowed us to break down in a format that had milestones attached to it, what people could expect. Now, what did this stop happening at the organization? This stopped everyone from the inevitable direct messages of, oh, we need to flip this asset. We need to flip this asset. Can you help with this? And it really allowed them to know when we'll be addressing their team's needs and how they can also plug into existing assets as we go throughout the year. And then another thing that we've actually done is with public Slack channels. So we have multiple ways that people can reach out to the design team, but my favorite is actually just help marketing design. And so at any time, anyone within the organization is enabled to reach out to us, and at least myself or someone from the design team will always respond, usually within seconds. We're pretty excited when they reach out to us. And the way I like to think about this is people have an inherent need or an inherent desire to want to be on brand. So if they're reaching out to you, it's because they care and they're plugged into that vision of enabling that 100-year company. And if we can help them, we can support them, point them in the right direction, we need to be there for them. So I encourage definitely that reaching out and letting people know about your plan.
Because, some people would say, in organizations that, their people are too busy with their own jobs to do these sorts of, change jobs. What would you say to them?
I would say to them to look at the bigger picture. Everyone's busy. Everybody is busy. Everybody has their own top priorities in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. But you have to keep on looking at that long-term vision. And I think the only way that you're going to get there in a scalable way is to know what those needs are. So one thing I also mentioned in just a moment ago was looking at the long-term vision and not getting focused on what is just right in front of you. So a way that we looked at this over the past, I would say, year is looking at what are the requests that are coming in. And if we can't do them right away, it's a matter of admitting
requests from clients or requests from teammates?
Requests from probably teammates, just given that it's an in-house design team.
Yeah.
So, but I actually do like to compare this to an agency structure where those would have been your clients, right? They all have different focus areas, whether it be support, onboarding, sales, people, and they're almost like your clients. So even treating those relationships with the respect to communicate when you can get to it, I think is super important.
Is one of the superpowers maybe that you have at Clio is that the brand is so front and center? I mean, a lot of people give that lip service, of course, but the operations are front and center. Is that part of the solution?
I would say yes. And I think right from the top, right from our CEO, Jack Newton, he has that buy-in to the brand. He's willing to invest in the brand and he truly believes in the power of it. One thing that we also look at too is in Clio, with our recent most Series E investment, is our acquisition strategy, our app partner ecosystem. There's so many other brands or so many other companies that are plugging into the brand that if we aren't intentional with the Clio brand, it just becomes, it would become pieced out. And that consistency, I think, is what builds that brand recognition. So the buy-in from our top level executive team, I think, is key to the success. But if you don't have that buy-in from your executive team or your CEO, I think there's many ways to get it, and just having open, honest conversations with them to build that trust.
You had a nice thought about opportunities are created in cross-functional efficiencies. Maybe you want to expand on that, and how might that apply to other organizations?
Absolutely. So I think a big way to look at this is any way that you can plug into the same software, the same ecosystems. And the way that we did this at Clio was definitely plugging into how our product design team was going about building their files, which was in Figma. And that move from Adobe really allowed us to grab the screenshots that we needed with efficiency, or provide them our brand colors or our components that we were using on the marketing side. So that way, if they needed to, this could also be used in the product. I think another really great way to do this is just looking at foundationally how you're communicating with your senior leadership team. So those efficiencies there too is how many times is that wheel being reinvented? And I'm thinking if you're watching live right now, there might be a few nods there, and just not operating in silos and really looking at, if one team is executing a deck for, we'll just say an onboarding presentation or a sales presentation, how can that deck or slides from that deck be repurposed for another opportunity happening just parallel to that one, and not always feeling like every single day is day one, but actually operating with what can I pull from? And if it's consistent, then you shouldn't be able to notice that you're repurposing an asset. It's just those efficiencies, I think, that allow you to go to market so much quicker as well.
Okay. You've touched on this a little bit already, but maybe you want to do it one succinct final, answer. If other brands who are at the beginning of this journey that Clio is already farther on are looking to make it, what would be your advice or pitfalls to avoid for someone at the beginning point of that journey?
Absolutely. If you're like me and you really like working fast and you look for efficiencies, you look for that scalable opportunities, don't rush into it in the beginning. Hold yourself back, admire the scenery. Don't feel like you need to just jump into the deep end. And what I mean by this is to spend time in your research phase, spend time talking to your customers, spend time connecting with prospects. That's actually where we got a lot of really great insight from, was just having phone calls with them, taking them through a couple mood boards that we had done, but really looking at what those key insights were that we were leaning into. And then every decision that we made for the brand and for how we're rolling out the brand was based on research. I think this also really helped our CEO and our executive team understand that the decisions we were making weren't personal. They were grounded in research, they were grounded in our customers, they were grounded in the prospects. And that way we knew that there was going to be success at the end of it because we had that confidence behind us. So don't rush into it. Start with your research, and also just enroll people, enroll the conversations, enroll your team, enroll your customers, your prospects, and then the rollout will be seamless.
And high level buy-in, very important as well, I hear it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
Absolutely.
you very much for the time and a wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great rest of the conference.
Thanks. Bye-bye.